look upon your hands, lowly one? Do you truly believe they move by your own command? You walk through the marketplace of life, head held high, convinced that the path you tread was paved by your own choices. How tragic, how utterly blind. You are not the master of your journey. You are a marionette dancing to a symphony composed by those who dwell in the shadows. Every yes you uttered today, every desire you feel, is but a silken thread being jerked from the darkness. You do not walk, you are moved. In this grand theater of power, the predator does not strike at your flesh. That is the clumsy way of the common thief. No, the true masters of deceit attack your very reality. They erode your sense of self until your own judgment becomes a stranger to you. They weave a web of psychological pressure and fear, transforming you into a tool for their advancement, while you remain blissfully unaware, smiling as you offer your neck to the blade. They know the ancient truth. The deceiver will always find those who are willing to be deceived. Hear this and let it burn into your soul. Everyone sees what you appear to be, but few really know what you are. The manipulator thrives in this gap between shadow and light. They present a sanctuary of affection, yet within it lies a cage. They offer you the truth only after they have systematically dismantled your faith in your own perception. They do not want your loyalty. They want your surrender. They do not want a friend. They want an instrument. The lion cannot defend himself against snares, and the fox cannot defend himself against wolves. To survive the pack, you must learn to be both. Today I shall not offer you comfort, for comfort is the mother of the weak. Instead, I lend you the eyes of the fox. We shall peel back the skin of 15 lethal traps from the office corridors to the intimate bedchamber that are being laid for you at this very moment. Listen closely to my counsel, or continue your mindless dance as a sheep waiting for the inevitable slaughter. The choice is yours, but the time of your ignorance is over.
Weapon 1. Gaslighting, the theft of reality. The most surgical of weapons is the one that turns your own mind into your executioner. When a predator employs gaslighting, they do not merely lie, they systematically dismantle your faith in your own perception. They will tell you, with the cold conviction of a saint, you are remembering it wrong, or you are overreacting, until you are left unmoored and uncertain. Why do they choose this? Because a man who cannot trust his own eyes must eventually borrow the eyes of his master to see the world. They know that our ability to decide what is true is foundational to feeling safe, and by stealing your truth, they make you their eternal captive. To be a fox, you must document every word, for the fox knows that the written record is the only shield against a tongue that rewrites history. Weapon 2. Love bombing, the gilded cage. Beware the man who offers a kingdom before he has even learned your name. Love bombing is the tactic of the beast who understands that the heart is weakest when it is overwhelmed. They shower you with intense affection and extravagant gifts, not out of generosity, but to create a debt of the soul, an emotional dependency that acts as a silken noose. It is a grand, unreciprocated gesture designed to bypass your defenses. Remember, the lion cannot defend himself against snares, and this is the most enticing snare of all. They build a pedestal for you only so they may later threaten to let you fall. A fox never trusts a feast that appears without a season of labor. Realize that excessive praise is often but the sharpening of a blade. Weapon 3. Guilt tripping, the shackles of conscience. The predator knows that men are ungrateful, fickle, and false, yet they also know that a man's conscience can be turned into a dungeon. Guilt tripping is the art of weaponizing your own empathy against you. They will sigh and say, "After everything I have done for you, this is how you treat me?" They position themselves as the eternal victim to force you into the role of the bad guy. They know that men more quickly forget the death of their father than the loss of their patrimony, and they use this loss of your moral standing to keep you in a state of constant apology. To survive, you must have the heart of a lion. When they demand your soul as payment for a kindness you never asked for, you must be willing to be feared rather than loved. Weapon 4. Triangulation, the divided battlefield. A master of power never fights a battle on one front when he can make his enemies fight each other. Triangulation is the fox's move to create competition and insecurity by involving a third party. They will whisper to you of another's better performance or threaten to expose you to those you respect, creating a theater of drama where they are the sole arbiter of truth. It is the ancient law of divide and rule. By keeping you in a state of perpetual rivalry with an invisible competitor, they ensure you are too busy fighting for their favor to ever challenge their authority. They want you to believe that no one would take your side if they knew the full story. Do not fall for the competition. The lion does not compete with the sheep. He looks directly at the shepherd who holds the crook. Weapon 5. Micromanagement, the erosion of the spirit. There are those who seek to own not just your labor, but your very will. Micromanagement is the slow poison of the tyrant who fears any strength that is not his own. They will scrutinize every detail, demanding constant updates and rejecting your ideas, not to improve the work, but to erode your confidence and establish dominance. A manipulative lord wants you to feel incompetent without his constant direction. They know that an autonomous man is a potential rebel, while a man who cannot move without permission is a tool. To counter this, you must present your decisions with facts and reasoning, for even a lion must respect the logic of the fortress you build with evidence. Never let them see your spirit break, for the predator pounces only when he senses the marrow of your self-worth has vanished.
Weapon 6. Blame shifting, the victim's dagger. The master of deceit never wears the stain of his own failures. In blame shifting, the predator flips the script, transforming their own malice into your transgression. They will look you in the eye with a trembling lip and hiss, "I would never act like this if you didn't make me so angry." They wrap themselves in the mantle of the victim so they may continue to strike as the executioner. Why? Because a man who is made to feel like the bad guy will exhaust his strength trying to make amends for a crime he did not commit. As I have taught, a wise prince knows that when cruelty is necessary, he must find a Ramiro de Orco to take the blame, leaving himself appearing satisfied and dismayed in the eyes of the people. Never accept the guilt they offer you. It is a collar, and once you put it on, they will never let go of the leash. Weapon 7. The silent treatment, the void of fear. Silence is not merely the absence of speech, it is a weapon of punishment and control. By employing the silent treatment, the manipulator withdraws their presence, leaving you in an unstable, unsafe emotional environment. They force you to dwell in the dark until the anxiety of the unknown breaks your pride and you crawl back to beg for a word, any word, of validation. They know that men are ungrateful, fickle, and false, and that your fear of abandonment is a stronger cage than any bars of steel. In the realm of power, the one who can remain unmoved by the silence is the one who rules the room. To survive, you must become like the stone. Let their silence be your fortress, not your prison. If they will not speak, let them find that you have no more need for their voice. Weapon 8. Name-dropping, the shadow lion. Observe the man who constantly speaks of his friends in high places. Name-dropping is the tactic of the weak who seek to borrow the majesty of the state to silence your objections.
They will say, "The CEO expects this," or "HR has already approved my plan," even when they have consulted no one. They are using the shadow of the lion to terrify the rabbits. They know that most men judge more by the eye than by the hand, and will bow to the appearance of authority rather than challenge its substance. If you wish to be a fox, you must demand the clarification in writing. Most manipulators are cowards who fear to leave a record of their lies, for they know that once the shadow is gone, they are but a small beast in a very large forest. Weapon 9. Withholding opportunities. The clipped wings. A servant who is too strong is a servant who is ready to rebel. The manipulator understands that your growth is their danger, so they practice the art of withholding opportunities. They block your training, block the path of advancement, and isolate you from those who could elevate you. They wish to keep you dependent and insecure so that you have no choice but to serve their narrow interests. Remember my words, he who is the cause of another becoming powerful is ruined. The predator will never hand you the ladder to climb above them. To counter this, you must seek your own external certifications and mentorship beyond their walls. Do not wait for them to open the gate. A lion does not ask for permission to leave the cage. Weapon 10. Public humiliation. The pillory of the soul. There is no weapon that cuts deeper than the one that strikes at a man's self-esteem in the sight of his peers. Public humiliation is a deliberate campaign of criticism designed to establish dominance and shatter your confidence before the tribe. By criticizing or shouting at you in front of colleagues, the manipulator attempts to make your very presence a source of shame. They know that men more quickly forget the death of their father than the loss of their patrimony, and for many, their dignity is the only patrimony they possess. When they attempt to pillory you, do not grant them the satisfaction of an emotional reaction. Stay professional, for manipulators thrive on emotional reactions. A lion remains a lion even when the hyenas laugh. Wait for the private moment to strike back with the cold logic of documentation and facts.
Weapon 11. Moving the goalposts. The horizon of despair. In the management of subjects, a wise lord knows that a man without hope is dangerous, but a man in perpetual pursuit is a slave. Moving the goalposts is the tactic of constantly changing expectations. No matter how much you labor, the standard is shifted the moment you reach it, ensuring you are either giving more and more or always in the wrong. Why does the predator choose this? Because by making it impossible to maintain boundaries, they gain an advantage that allows them to maintain the emotional power over you. They want you to effortlessly strive until your spirit is dust. Remember, to a tyrant, your success is a threat. They prefer you in a state of despair so that you never look up from your chains to see the door is open. A fox knows the terrain does not change, only the master's word does. Weapon 12. Negging. The sting beneath the salute. A predator does not always roar. Sometimes he whispers a backhanded compliment to bleed your spirit dry. Negging is the art of using subtle insults to undermine your confidence. They praise your work only to follow it with a remark that makes you feel vulnerable and unworthy. This is designed to make you thirst for recognition from the very person who wounds you. It is a slow erosion of self-esteem so that you eventually believe you deserve no better than their presence. A lion knows that men judge more by the eye than by the hand. If the word sounds like praise but feels like a strike, believe the strike. Do not seek the approval of one who builds their throne on the ruins of your confidence. Weapon 13. Breadcrumbing. The famine of hope. The deceiver knows that the promise of a feast is more powerful than the feast itself. Breadcrumbing is the handing out crumbs of attention, just enough flirty messages and social media interactions to keep you emotionally invested without committing. They give you just enough to stay, but never enough to be satisfied, maintaining an army of those willing to be deceived. It is the management of mixed signals designed to waste your time and energy. As I have taught, Men are so simple and so subject to present necessities that they will cling to a crumb as if it were a kingdom. A fox never pursues a trail that has no end. Realize that a man who will not commit his forces to the field is a man who has already planned his retreat. Weapon 14. Future faking. The crown of smoke. The predator paints a grand promise about the future to justify the exploitation of the present. Future faking creates a false sense of security, making you believe in a shared throne that will never manifest. They know my most vital observation. Men more quickly forget the death of their father than the loss of their patrimony. By promising you a future patrimony, they make you forget the loss of your current life and labor. They offer you a vacation together or planning your future before a foundation is even laid. It is a grand, unreciprocated gesture to bypass your defenses. To be a lion, you must demand the clarification in writing and look at the actions of today, for the future is a land that only the foolish buy without seeing. Weapon 15. Hoovering. The whirlpool of reclamation. When the sheep finally gains the strength to leave, the predator becomes a sycophant to reclaim their prize. Hoovering is the deliberate act of manipulation used to suck a person back into a destructive relationship they are withdrawing from. They will use sudden crises, a medical emergency, or a threat of self-harm to make your departure feel cruel. They start with love bombing and apologies for past wrongs to reassert power and control. They know that the crisis will bring you right back in because it is a hard thing to not respond to. If you wish to survive, you must go no contact, block the cells, change the locks, and remain unmoved by their apologies. A lion does not return to the trap once he has tasted the air of freedom.
You must understand, wretched soul, that the manipulator is not inherently mightier than you. They simply possess a more profound map of your internal architecture. They have charted the territories of your greatest anxieties, your terror of being loathed, your dread of isolation, and your shivering fear of failure. They do not lead by merit. They rule by the gravity of your own insecurities. They know that men are so simple and so subject to present necessities that you will trade your freedom for a moment of false validation. They do not break your will. They merely convince you that your chains are ornaments. The hour of decision is upon you. Will you remain the docile sheep, grazing peacefully while the shadow of the guillotine lengthens across the grass? Or do you yearn for the eyes of the fox to unmask the hidden snares, and the heart of the lion to drive the wolves back into the frozen dark? To exist in this world without the ability to recognize traps is a crime against your own survival. If you do not learn the rules of this grim game, you are not a player. You are merely the prize for those who do. Realize that the deceiver will always find those who are willing to be deceived. Stop being their willing victim. I have written that it is best to both loved and feared, but as they rarely dwell in the same house, it is safer to be feared than loved. Love is a fragile bond, held together by the link of obligation, which men, being the ungrateful and false creatures they are, will sever the moment their self-interest demands it. But fear is maintained by a dread of punishment, the fear of your cold discernment, and it never fails you. Do not beg for the kindness of a predator. Kindness is the coin of the weak. Instead, force them to respect your alertness. Let them realize that to attempt to move your strings is to invite their own ruin. Become a fortress that is difficult to attack because you are never caught sleeping.
Now, cast aside your grievances and take up your armor. If you wish to remain the master of your own fate, you must first become a meticulous chronicler of the truth. The manipulator's tongue is a pen that writes in shifting sand, but your defense must be carved in stone. Document everything. Every email, every whispered instruction, every promise made in the heat of a love bombing campaign must be preserved. When they attempt to gaslight you into doubting your sanity, your written record shall be the mirror that reflects their treachery. A wise prince knows that men judge more by the eye than by the hand, so ensure there is always a trail of evidence that their eyes cannot deny. A territory without borders is not a kingdom. It is a graveyard waiting for its first inhabitant. You must establish boundaries of iron, and when they are breached, you must strike back with the most lethal weapon in your arsenal, the exile. If they persist in their hoovering or emotional blackmail, you must go no contact. Block the digital roads to your mind, change the locks on your heart, and remain as unmoved as a statue in a storm. Remember, men are ungrateful, fickle, and false, and they will only respect the boundaries they are afraid to cross. Do not seek to explain. Silence is the only language a predator understands when the hunt is over. This world was never intended for the naive. Innocence in a court of wolves is not a virtue, it is a suicide note. You must forge your discernment as if you were tempering a blade over the fires of experience. If you do not arm your mind today, do not weep when the pack finds you in the dark. Power belongs only to those who are awake while others dream of future-faking promises. The deceiver will always find those who are willing to be deceived. Ensure that you are no longer among their number. Take this final truth with you into the marketplace. The lion cannot defend himself against snares, and the fox cannot defend himself against wolves. Therefore, one must be a fox to recognize the snares, and a lion to frighten the wolves. Go forth then. Be subtle enough to see the thread, and fierce enough to cut the hand that pulls it. The game of life has begun. Will you be the player or the pawn?